President Joe Challam and myself.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
But anyway, I want to thank all of you for being on this morning. This is the fifth in our series of APM meetings this week, and our chair, Taylor Collins, is going to handle it. And again, we're being recorded, so just kind of keep that in mind. I will have editing capabilities, I think.
Please edit the first 5 minutes of this conversation.
That's right. That's right. So anyway, thank you for being here. I'm going to turn it over to our president, 2020 president, who was duly elected at our recent conference and installed, although technically he doesn't take office until January 1st. So Joe, thanks for being on as well, and I'll turn it over to you so you can introduce Taylor.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks for everyone who's being on the call, and those who will be watching this this training session in the future. And our goal is simple. Advocacy comes to the core of our association mission. It's to protect our way of life and to advocate for our agents and for the public at large. And you know, for 2020, my overall mission for our association falls into two categories: membership and leadership. Advocacy doesn't survive, doesn't have a chance without membership, and membership doesn't have a chance without leadership. So really appreciate everyone being on the call. The other point that I'd really like to share is that ideas are the foundation of our organization. Ideas are the foundation of what we do. And in that light, we are promoting the free flow of ideas through the Idea Incubator. In fact, at the state level, we're going to be creating an email address, inbox called idea@nafa-florida.org to make it a little bit easier for people to submit ideas. And those ideas will be respected. We genuinely want to hear what people have to say, because it only takes one idea to make a difference. And our 2020 PC chair is a shining example of that in Taylor Collins, where one idea led to an entire legislative process. So to benefit our consumers, our clients, and we're openly encouraging other people to do the same. So at this time, please welcome Taylor Collins, who will conduct the training.
Hello. Tom, I seem to have lost my slides. Are we still sharing? There we go. There you go. Thank you, Tom. Okay, so hi, I'm Taylor Collins. Most of y'all know me. I focus on executive comp and benefits in the Sarasota, Florida area. And one of my passions is political advocacy to make our industry better. So being a part of NAFA was kind of a really easy fit because they represent us and our clients. And you can't complain if you're not involved. So you got to get involved. So I appreciate y'all taking the time to kind of learn a little bit about what we'd like to accomplish in the next year. So I always go back to basics. I always like to start with who we are, who our contributors are, and use that to tailor a message to the rest of the membership in terms of the importance of political advocacy. Then we'll talk a little bit about our goals, and I'd love some idea sharing, and I want to share some of the resources that we have. There are some slight changes to NAFA National Political Advocacy, as well as NAFA Florida. And then I am totally open to any suggestions you might have, because like Joe said, we're on the front lines. We're seeing what's going on, what these bigwigs in DC and Tallahassee are doing, and how it is really affecting our clients and our community. And so it's up to us to make suggestions on how to make it better. So I made a very small suggestion, and Tim Meenan, who is our lobbyist in Tallahassee, who has a phenomenal relationship with the elected officials, and the insurance commissioners that he took the ball and ran with it. He helped create basically legislative language. And then we went to Tallahassee Day on the Hill and we advocated for it. And thankfully it passed. It was a simple idea of requiring life insurers to notify agents of lapses. You would think that would be a no-brainer, but due to cost cutting and everything that seemed to try, I had a couple of carriers that tried to do away with that. And I think part of that is our value to our clients. So let's maintain that aspect. So, all right, so let's jump in. Tom, if you could go to the next slide. Okay, so let's start with the overall goal. I actually pulled this direct from the NAIFA national website in terms of who we are as IFAPAC. And it's to the goal of IFAPAC is, in a nutshell, to help the associations advance the legislative and regulatory interests of members of NAIFA, IES. So they advocate for us as members, which is part of our dues structure. But we also have IFAPAC contributions that help facilitate those. Any U.S. citizen can contribute to IFAPAC. Only only NAIFA members may be solicited, but you can have your spouse contribute as well, because obviously your job insurance is important for the family income. So sometimes, including my own spouse, has found it of value to contribute to IFAPAC as well. Contributions are voluntary, which is why we need a committee to help illustrate why IFAPAC is important. And they're not tax deductible. I wish they were, but they're not. There's approximately 5,000 committees across the country. IFAPAC is in the top, I believe, 3 in the nation. It's the largest insurance PAC in the country. And in the last election cycle, we contributed over $2 million to federal candidates and committee. Now, I hate the idea of money talks and money gets you in the door, but unfortunately, that's still the case across the country. So it just is a way for them to remember us, because we're helping them pay for a lot of expenses they may not have been able to budget for. So that being said, so that's IFAPAC in a nutshell. Next slide, Tom. Okay, so let's bring it back home to Florida. Year to date in 2019, we have 279 contributors, and that's their personal funds. So one of the ideas that I had was to just start saying thank you. It's so easy, it's cheap to say thank you, because I know it's coming out of your own commissions, your own funds, your own household income. So I appreciate you understanding the importance as a contributor of IFAPAC. So over the year, we've got 33,000 plus in contributions, or excuse me, sorry, we've given out over $33,000 in contributions to campaigns and committees. And I want to stress that it is on both sides of the aisle. So I know we have some proponents in the community that say that we're one-sided, but we really do advocate on both sides, because obviously utilizing both sides gets things done. We can't do anything without either side, left or right, conservative or liberal, however way you vote, I don't care. But we want to contribute to all levels to make sure that our message is heard. And to do that, we have to contribute to both sides. And basically these contributions come from requests from our IFAPAC contributors. They come from you. They don't come from Tallahassee. They don't come from DC. They come from you. If you have a friend, a local community member, a leader that you want to support that will be able to bring our message, then we want to hear from you. We want to contribute. We want to talk to that person and bring them to the table, to our table, basically. So that I just want to reiterate the fact that all of this really is coming down to the local level, that it's from you, the contributors, that decide how we put forth this money. We do take recommendations from our lobbyist, Tim Meenan, but overall it's from us. So next slide. Okay, so 279 contributors, lots of opportunity, because it only represents about 16% of our current members. Our goal is a lofty goal, I will say. We're currently at around 86,000, but our goal really should be in 2019 and 2020 around 150,000. Granted, we're almost done with the third quarter, so there's still plenty of time. But remember that IFAPAC calendars go January to December. So if you were a contributor in December, you're not a contributor in January. So we look at the total overall January to December, so we still have a few months out of the year. And I will say, I think November and December is our largest contribution month. So I think we'll get close to that. But again, always opportunity. And one of the biggest advocacies that we made a change actually this year in the last couple of months, your NAIFA team has advocated on your behalf to maintain the 50-50 split between NAIFA National and NAIFA Florida. DC is getting expensive, so IFAPAC has additional expenses up there that they're needing to fund. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the budgets of some of these campaigns. They're absolutely insane. So they requested a higher contribution level from the states. Well, Florida, being the innovative, creative, loud state that we are, advocated to maintain the 50-50 split in Florida. And we're one of the only states that advocated on that. So that's your IFAPAC committee at work. So we would love your continued support. And okay, so I'm a huge data fan. Statistics was the only math class I really got an A in it growing up. So I like data because data actually can tell a story. You can utilize it for a lot of different ways. One of the ways I want to try and use it is to find opportunities and tailor a message, pardon the pun, to our membership, because obviously YATs speak very differently than the more seasoned agents, than the ones kind of right in the mix of their industry. So there's just different messages that we could utilize. So it is mostly male. I don't think that was any surprise because that's kind of our industry. Our YATs are about 12%, which I will be honest, it's a little higher than I thought it was going to be. But again, there's room for improvement because this is the future. We're the future. I'm a YAT myself. I'm under 40, but I've been in the business 12 years, and I understand that advocacy is where it's at. We have to create the industry we want for the future, and by doing so, contributing to IFAPAC is important. So geography, we're pretty much spread evenly out over the state. I looked, there wasn't any real outliers. They were all within 20 to 30% of the 6 chapters remaining. It is getting a little difficult to pull the data out because we now have affiliates and we have people at large. So as we get new members and they're attached to a chapter, they're now part of NAIFA Florida, kind of at large. As well as we don't capture a lot of demographics in terms of YATs. So that was really difficult. We don't capture birth dates, race, quite frankly. It'd be interesting to see how the minority population is represented. And then we don't necessarily capture whether you're independent or captive, because I feel like captives have a different story to tell than independents. We all have a little bit of a different challenge. Yes, we're all in the insurance industry, but you could tailor a message. So I had a little trouble getting that out of the data that I got, but I'll keep working on it. So okay, so 3 options to consider. There's 3 pieces of contributions that we want people to consider. There's the standard IFAPAC. Ideally, we would love monthly bank draft. Because it helps fund campaigns on both sides of the aisle, and it's approved by an IFAPAC committee. We really try and encourage people to give to IFAPAC in any way, shape, or form, monthly bank draft or annual or semi-annual, I don't care, but credit card, checking account. I will say that in conversations with NAIFA National, they loved our idea of the thank you cards and the gratitude that comes with it. I was really surprised while they pushed monthly bank draft because it's obviously administratively easier and you're more likely to keep it in place. There was no actual thank you or updates or regular conversation for those on the monthly bank draft. I was shocked. So that is something that is going to change just by mentioning that, you know, I'm a monthly bank. I give monthly bank draft out of my personal checking account, and I don't get any follow up from it either. And I think that if you're trying to encourage that, one would think you'd want to say thank you. Anywho, so the administrative funds are important. These are, they provide a little bit more flexibility in terms of how you fundraise and solicit. Right now, NAFA National really would prefer a $6 per chapter member. And that helps administrative costs, overhead, things like that for everyday expenses, not political campaign contributions, which is what IFAPAC is for. So any questions so far?
Yes. Right immediately on the administrative funds, it's my understanding that if a member were to give a company check, you know, like a corporate check, that would go directly to administrative funds. Is that correct?
That is an awesome point. Thank you, Joe. Yes, that is also a way for corporations to contribute to our political action committee, but can write a corporate check as opposed to personal. Again, I don't believe it's tax deductible either, but it's a way to use corporate funds to help move us forward. So, excellent question.
And the other point is, and that I did not realize, which I appreciate, is that any U.S. citizen can contribute. They just can't necessarily be solicited.
Correct.
So that is an angle that I don't think we've ever, or at least I'm not familiar with hearing before. I've always heard, hey, we can only solicit to members, and yeah, I knew about the spouse thing, but you know, our reach actually can be a lot larger than I think we're aiming for. And I think that although we can't solicit it, we can make people aware of it.
Yeah. I'm curious about that citizenship thing. My husband's not a citizen, albeit he does contribute. So I don't know if he gets through that rule because he's a spouse or what, but that was taken directly from NAFA Nationals.
Well, on the application, I don't think it asks if you're a citizen.
No, it doesn't.
So then how would they even know that data point?
I don't know. It's just their requirement or I guess their language, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it's
Interesting.
Gray area.
And Taylor, we have a question that came in here. Are adult children in the household able to contribute as well?
Yes, I believe so.
They would probably fall under the any citizen.
Yes. They cannot be solicited though, unless they're NAFA members.
Right.
So, but yeah, good question. I mean, if you're giving it, if they have their own credit card, et cetera, their own checking account, which I hope if they're adult children they have, but maybe not a credit card, but a bank account at least. Okay, so excellent points. Thank you for expanding on that. Oh wait, go back. Can you go back one slide, Tom? I'm sorry. Right. Nope, back. Yep. Okay. So the other piece I want to point out is we created under Jeff's leadership this legislatively. I'm going to give Jeff credit. I don't know. It's probably Jeff. Legislatively, aka we call it lovingly Meenan's Minions, Tim Meenan, our lobbyist, and his minions. This legislatively requires, I believe, $750 of contribution. And what we wanted to do is to celebrate those that gave at a little higher level. We wanted it still to be accessible, but at the same time, honor those that chose to give a little bit more than the base amount. So it provides additional access. We generally will have a nice social at Day on the Hill, provided by Tim Meenan. If you've ever had him select wine, he's pretty good at it. And he gives us a little bit more insider information in terms of who the players are in Tallahassee, et cetera, and then how we can help locally as well and provide. He's always accessible though, so if you're an IFAPAC contributor or even a member, he's always accessible and willing to listen to any ideas you may have. So just to give him a little bit of a plug. So that's good. Any questions on that? That's fairly new. Cool. All right, next. Oh, sorry, helps to read. Okay, so what I'd like to do in terms of goals and how to reach that $150,000 is I want to market with demographics in mind. I want to figure out a way to create socials or fundraising events that speak to not only yachts, but also the second and third generation of agents. And make sure that we remember that who our customers are. Our customers are the members of NAFA. I almost want to look at it like a nonprofit, but not a nonprofit. We have these amazing donors that choose to make that choice to contribute to IFAPAC. And so I'd like to make sure we're remembering who our customers are. And that's our members who contribute. And then, as y'all know, the hardest part of our business is getting in front of a customer on a favorable basis. So we need to, and I'm open to ideas on how to network and get our message across. Emails are great and they're super easy and they're cheap, but you and I know that we make the bigger sale when we are in front of face-to-face with the customer. So I'd love ideas on how we can go about utilizing that. So next slide, Tom.
Taylor, I have a quick question. I'm wondering if it's possible to find out how many second and third generation agents we have.
Oh, that's a great idea. I was just thinking in terms of the generational.
Well, it's kind of like it's another data set. It's another because
Yeah.
I think that if we have a NAFA member who's a second and third generation agent, I think there's a higher level of loyalty, and they already get it. And I think that also the other thing that we're seeing, at least in some respects, are people who are handing off their businesses. So I met someone last week who used to be an AFA member, and he's a seasoned agent, probably, you know, like core to the table type production level. And he brought his son into the business and he's mentoring his son, but because he's nearing retirement, he's kind of dropped out of all of the associations. And I'm wondering how many of that type of demographic might be out there and may or may not be members, but that'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal idea. I almost want to have, like, maybe at the Day on the Hill or something like that, have a small group meeting, coffee, all meet at the Shell Oyster Bar or something in Tallahassee and just kind of visit and have them bring the second generation or third generation in. I think that's an awesome idea. I definitely wrote that one down.
Tom, maybe that's something we could talk about, that concept.
I will buy the first round of oysters. How about that? Because I am a second generation agent. Okay, so that is a great segue into our lovely pictures of advocacy. So you probably see a lot of the members in your area. These are just, literally, these are a few. I had to, we have a lot of fun up in Tallahassee if you've never been. It allows, we have a warm welcome from everybody that we talk to. And you know what? If they disagree with us, it's fascinating to be in on that meeting where they disagree, because they'll actually have a conversation. They'll talk to us. It's not as scary. It's not a yes, no. We want to have a conversation to understand why we are advocating one way or the other. And the best part about it is we have our foot in the door because we have this wonderful IFAPAC set up to have them remember us. So it's a lot of fun. If you've never been to Tallahassee, I strongly recommend it. I know we have congressional conference as well, but I'm a Tallahassee girl, so go Knowles. So I recommend it. We have a breakfast in the morning where we have a great speaker. Usually we get our orders from Tim Meenan in terms of why we're advocating certain bills. And then we break out into our meetings with our community, our elected officials, basically. So you might have 4, 5, 6 meetings that afternoon. They only last about 15, 20 minutes. Sometimes they'll go longer. We usually get a face-to-face with the elected official. I think very seldom we'll meet with an admin But also remember the admins. So even if you're not meeting face-to-face with the official, meeting their admins is almost better because they're the gatekeeper. They're the ones that are going to say, wow, these guys knew what they were talking about. They provided this great summary. If we need to talk to Tim, here's his card. I really liked them. They're part of our community. This is why I mean, so they actually give a kind of a yay or nay quick answer to the elected official and manage their calendars as well. So it's sometimes better. So great pictures. Does anybody have any stories to tell about Tallahassee they want to share?
I think that it's the stories are not always directly related to the legislators. I think what a lot of people fail to bring is relaying the fact that you're engaged in advocacy in your association and so forth to your clients. I know that in the past, I would always try to return phone calls that were coming in from clients throughout the day, you know, from the seat of Tallahassee. You know, you're just hanging out in the hall, and you know, someone's no doubt going to ask, "What's all that noise? Where are you?" So, oh, no big deal. I'm just, you know, I'm participating in our Day on the Hill for my professional association, so I'm here sitting in the rotunda in Tallahassee, advocating on your behalf. That really helps distinguish you, helps set you aside from all the other agents that are not doing it. And I don't think that we promote that concept to our members enough.
Absolutely.
I think one of my favorite stories about Day on the Hill, the legislative Day on the Hill that we have here is a few years ago, we had a member from Central Florida Association, Michael Laporte. And some of you may have heard this before, and if you have, I apologize. But Michael had been a member of the association for years, and he had never come to Day on the Hill. And so he decided he would go. I guess the folks at Central Florida were kind of pressuring him to go. So he came up here, and at the reception that evening on the 22nd floor of the Capitol, where our reception was at that time, I kind of saw him standing off by himself. So I went over and said hello to him, and you know, we chatted for a few minutes. He said, "Tom," he said, "this has been an amazing day." I said, "Well, I'm glad you think so." He said, No. He said, "You don't get it." He said, "We actually changed policy today." He said, "We changed policy." He said, "We met with our legislators from the Central Florida area, and in a couple of cases, they weren't aware of the issue or the bills. And once we explained it to them in our group meeting with them, you know, they listened, and in one case, they changed their mind about it." He said, "This is incredible." He said, "I have never experienced anything like this before." He said, "I'll be back every year." He said, "This has been the most fascinating day to me." And if you all think back to your first Day on the Hill of experience, it was probably very similar to that. And, you know, if we can get our members, all of them, that would be a dream. But especially to get people who've never been to Day on the Hill before and have that same aha moment, you become disciples. You really do understand what the purpose of this association is, the work that we do. And in Tallahassee and Washington is where the rubber really meets the road in terms of membership benefits. It really does. So advocacy is our number one mission, I think. And to talk to someone like Michael Laporte, who had never been before, was a very gratifying experience for me as well.
Yeah. I have a funny story that I like to tell. My husband came with me when he first moved out. He's an English UK citizen, so he came over. He couldn't work, so he was free, and he decided to come up to Tallahassee with me because I was going. And we wanted to go to the cocktail hour, which is always a lot of fun at the end of the day. But we had one more meeting with Mike Bennett left, who was a representative from, he was a senator at the time from my hometown. And there weren't that many, but everybody was ready to just go to the cocktail party because it was like 5 o'clock meeting. So I said, "Honey, okay, you're gonna come with me. You just need to sit in the corner and be quiet. Like, just don't talk. I just need a body there." And he was fine, whatever, I get a drink. So he came, and he had kind of I had briefed him a little bit on some of the issues we had at that time. It was why agents maybe shouldn't sell across state lines. It's a whole other debate, I know. But I was explaining that to Senator Bennett, and my husband pipes up, and they start chatting about whether or not that should be allowed and why and what the reasonings are. And I'm whipping my head around, and I'm like, you realize you've been in the country like 2 months and you're already arguing with a state senator over policy. So, I mean, it really is that easy, I guess, in terms of getting, the foot in the door and having that conversation. So I love that story because Senator Bennett just was so kind. And while he disagreed with us, we did have that conversation, and it was from somebody that literally had only been in the country 2 months. So anybody can do it. So I love that story. And I think you're absolutely right, Tom and Joe, that once you get there, you're a IFAPAC member for life. So that we already kind of did this, unless there's any other testimonials that you want to share.
Yeah, this is Jim. My favorite story is after attending several days on the Hill, I got to know my state senator, Eleanor Sobel, pretty well. And after meeting with her at each of the day on the Hill that I attended, I went to a restaurant in downtown Hollywood for lunch. And when I went in, there's Senator Sobel and the mayor of Hollywood. And she waved me over, and I said, yeah, hi. She said, we need your help. I said, how so? She said, we have an insurance question, and we know, what you do, and please help us with our insurance question. And your PAC money almost can't buy that kind of response, because
Absolutely.
what we want them to do is when they have an insurance question or something they don't know, and you can't know everything, so there's a lot that they don't know and have to rely on staff or us to get a proper answer. So I was able to answer their question, and my explanation to them was, yeah, I can help you with this, but if it's a property casualty question, I know where to get the answer, so please call me on that as well. So that's my favorite story.
Oh, that's a great one. Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, I think Jim brings up a really, really good point that I think one of our missions when we do attend days on the Hill or simply visiting with legislators, even in district, is that we need to make it very clear that we're happy to be a resource. And that's exactly what Jim did. And he obviously did a great job at it. And I think that helps create that relationship as well, knowing that they can reach out to someone who has enough interest and engagement in the process and is knowledgeable in that particular area.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's figure out how we can grow. So next slide, Tom, if you don't mind. I did it in NAFA blue. I hope everybody enjoys this.
Is that the slide you want, or are you finished with this one?
I'm finished with this one.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So again, we've got a lofty 2020 goal. But I almost, when you go in front of clients, you usually need to sell the concept before you even talk about money. So I want to change the narrative of give us money to more of participation, because I feel like if we have more participation and more camaraderie, that the money will come. If we're providing a good value, if we're getting butts in the seats, I think right there, the money will come. So what I'd like to really focus on is increase the participation for Day on the Hill and Congressional Conference. Ideally 20%, if we could do it more, awesome. So my goal is to increase that participation. And I'd also, being a YAT, I'd also like to increase the YAT contributions by about 20% as well. There's a lot of opportunity there, obviously. We have a great group of YATs, and I think that if they see the advocacy firsthand, that it'll be a really easy sell. So we'll start with participation for the actual actions of the Political Action Committee, and the money will, I believe, will come in 2020. So that being said, for those of you that are leadership at local levels, I'd like to hear what your goals are in terms of how to get to the 150. I'll leave it up to you, but I will be following up and reaching out for that. I'd encourage at least 2 PAC or PIC related events where you bring in an elected official or somebody running for office, and put Tim Meenan to work. He's not here, so I can told him to do something. So put him to work. He loves to travel. And he'll be paid in a bottle of wine, I'm telling you. No, I'm just kidding. But he'll bring in a legislative update, and don't forget that qualifies as CE. He has legislative update approved CE. Coming to a membership related luncheon gives you CE compliments of the advocacy team of NAFA. So it's a great way to update our members of what's going on in Tallahassee and DC, but also to grab some continuing education as well. I'd love to hear from members. I love the idea of that email, idea at NAFA. What is it? Idea at NAFA.
Florida.org. Yeah.
Is there a dash in there somewhere?
Yeah, it's a NAFA website. So it's idea at NAFA-Florida.org.
Okay, awesome. I'd love to hear what ideas you have in terms of legislative changes we ought to consider. Tim needs to be put to work. So we need to give him what is important to our membership. He represents us, and he wants to create good policy around what our needs are. So I think, is it okay if we use that website for that as well?
Absolutely.
And then document your visits with local elected officials. Seeing them in your community is almost, I would say, more important than seeing them in Tallahassee, because you're able to get that one-on-one time without any kind of committee distraction and things like that. And they end up giving you more time as well. So, but document those visits so we can share and membership can see what you're doing at your local level. Maybe sponsor a table at a Tiger Bay or a Chamber Lake event. I don't know if you've got Tiger Bay in your community. Those are generally fun, and a great advocacy way to get our name out there as a player in the community for policy changes, that we're representing our policyholders in Tallahassee and DC. So that's just a thought. I know here locally, the Junior League has also decided to do a Tiger Bay table for their public affairs committee. It's a PAC, but they call it public affairs. So it's been working. It's been getting their members involved in legislative changes and opening that conversation. So any thoughts on this slide from anybody?
Yeah, Taylor, I never thought of sponsoring a NAFA table at a chamber event, but it's actually a super good idea because I believe many chambers have multiple insurance agents or advisors as members of the chamber, and they're not necessarily members of NAFA. So maybe that's another way to, they may have heard of NAFA but not taken action. So maybe that's another way to communicate the message.
Absolutely. Advocates for membership as well as public affairs. So, all right, next slide.
And Taylor, if I might interject for a moment, Terry Seefeld, our state legislative chair, held her APM teleconference yesterday afternoon and did a great job with it, as you are doing. But one of the things that we discussed in there is if you have some thoughts or ideas when it comes to policy change, as you were just addressing, please feel free to let us know, or certainly let Terry know and the legislative committee. They're the ones who will work. They're the ones who will work directly with Tim on any types of proposed language and so on and so forth. But that's what we're all about. This is an advocacy organization, and if you've got some great ideas regarding some changes in law or in regulations through the administrative code, both of which regulate us as advisors, please let us know. This is your association, and Taylor made a great point. Let us know what your thoughts are, and either send it through the new email address that we'll get set up very shortly, or contact one of us or Terry. Be glad to talk about it.
Yeah, thanks. So in time commit, I don't want to hold anybody long. So I'm going to try and wrap it up in like 5 minutes, and then we can open it to suggestions, conversations, ideas, etc. But these are some of the ideas that I was chatting with NAFA National, because I know it's always a challenge to know what's allowed and what's not. I will share that NAFA National is more of a ask forgiveness kind of organization, apparently. So if you do something and you don't know that it's wrong, that's fine. You're welcome to ask us first. But so for instance, state of Florida doesn't really like any kind of alcohol related games or gambling for raising funds for PAC, although you could give that to admin funds, which will always be appreciated. So, but in terms of actual donations for campaigns, they really want us to, Florida requires us to stay away from alcohol games or gambling, i.e. 50-50 games. So we get that question a lot. Granted, they had at NAFA National Convention in Orlando, they had kind of a fun game. It was a ring toss, but with large bottles of liquor. And if you got the ring on the liquor bottle, you got to keep it. So, but in order to play, you had to donate some funds to the administrative, I assume administrative funds to keep them compliant, but I don't think they were more ask forgiveness. Anyway, so silent auctions are always a good idea. I know that's been popular in some other chapters. Receiving donations and then auctioning them off. Dunk tanks, carnival games. I would love to pie Tim Meenan in the face. I've been trying to do that for a while. We got nixed in the NAFA Florida convention, but just a thought. He's going to kill me for saying that. And or simple things like, I'm a Florida State Seminole. If you want to have a contest of me having to wear orange and blue Gator t-shirts, I'd be willing to go through that, although it would pain me. Raffles, but just to make it fun, because I know that asking for money is, yes, we do it in our industry, but we oftentimes clench up for asking for funds for IFA-PAC as well. So if you do it in kind of a fun, roundabout way that gets people involved and enjoying it, it makes it a heck of a lot easier. So just some ideas there. And I think that'll help reach our goals if we do it kind of in a sneaky, roundabout way of getting people to contribute to IFA-PAC or admin funds. So is this the last slide, Tom, or is there one more I can remember? Oh, yeah, resources. You kind of know where to go for information, right? So
Taylor?
Yes.
I think I remember the Day on the Hill reception afterwards is going to be at Tim's office or in the courtyard outside his office.
Yes.
That might be an opportunity to do a pie in the face.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Tim is going to kill me.
Or a ring toss.
or rings. Yeah, he'll buy the liquor, I imagine. So networking with other locals and see what they're doing outside the box. That's one of the great benefits to the NAFA Florida Convention. I know it's just passed, but that's a great way to have a conversation with other locals to see what they're doing. There's a great FAQ question and answers on the NAFA.org website. They are doing a heck of a lot to that website in terms of promoting social media and conversation. I think they even have their own social media page. So I'd encourage, if you haven't been, go to NAFA.org, and if you do /advocacy, that's where a lot of our advocacy information will be. But there's a heck of a lot of information on that website. And then if you need a story to tell, if you need some victories, there's NAFA-florida.org/legislative-victories. I'm happy to send out these slides as well if you need these links. But that talks a little bit about what we have won in the past, stranger-owned life insurance, some property and casualty, which I don't do, so I can't really go into, but there's a lot of wins that we've already had that I think would be really good to tell a story. And then Tim Heenan has a great legislative wrap up. He does a lot of email blasts in terms of where we are during session and how we can help as members and IFA-PAC contributors. So those are some resources to use. Any questions on those? Awesome. All right. I think the next, okay, there we go. So please consider Day on the Hill. It's January 28th, 2020. It's early because session is early. We start early, I think, every other year. So it'll be a little chilly up in Tallahassee. They have Georgia weather, but it'll be a lot of fun. You won't burn up if you're a Gator, even though we're having it in the Doak Campbell Stadium. And registration for first-time attendees is $95 or returning members $130, but there are scholarships available. We have a NAFA Florida Foundation, which I'm sure there's another training session about that, which is a phenomenal program that I contribute to as well personally, because I think it's so important to help offset some of those costs. I'm offering you're welcome to drive up with me. I drive up. I don't like little planes driving or flying from Sarasota to Tallahassee. So I drive up. I'm happy to pay for gas, and I'll even pay for the first cocktail of the evening, especially if it's your first time. So hopefully, I don't know if that helps people get there. But it's a lot of fun.
I have a question. Tom, are we offering any discounted rates for yachts?
No.
We're not. Okay.
Great. Well, I mean, if they're a first time attendee, it's $95. The only thing then, if you drive up with me, the only thing you have to worry about is a hotel, which I'm sure we all can figure out bunking arrangements. There's a great deal, I know, through NAFA Florida for that. And they even reimburse for some there's a great hotel rate available through the NAFA Florida Hotel, and they have a bus usually that takes you to the Capitol, so you don't have a lot of worry about how to get to places. Tom and his team take amazing care of our members in terms of that. And I'm trying to think, is there anything else I want to say? That's it on that. And I gave you my cell phone number. Feel free. I text, email, phone call.
And Joe, just to clarify, the reason there is not a separate yacht rate is because of the scholarships that are available.
Okay.
And, that's how we
I'm trying to
run that.
encourage people to use that foundation money, guys.
Yeah. There's a couple of things, Taylor, I'd like to ask about. Could you talk a little bit about the structure of the state committee and how that's all set up that you're going to be chairing next year?
That is, I am looking for committee members. So if anybody's interested, I'd like to utilize the leadership in the different 6 chapters. So hopefully that can make up my 6-man committee. I'm really bad at creating committees though, so I will say that. I don't mean to be a one-woman show, but I just, for whatever reason, I'm bad at it. So if you want to participate, I'm more than open, but I do need to create one. So I think that was the answer to your question, Tom.
That's fine. And just to mention that Sue Nading is the treasurer, secretary treasurer of the state PAC committee. It's not a PAC in Florida. It's called a political committee, and I need to correct my language on that. It's the political committee, PC, and Sue's chair is handling the secretary treasurer responsibility.
Because Sue is amazing.
That's right.
Not sure about that, but I'm here.
If you are listening to my voice on this teleconference, either live or a recording, we just want to encourage you to make sure that your local political committees are formed. We have 6 large chapters around the state here with NAFA, and we've got 2 affiliates who are active. It's so important, as Taylor has just emphasized, that those local committees need to be viable. They need to be working. They need to be actively raising PAC funds. And the only way to do that is through organization. So the local PAC chair, PC chair, needs to have a committee and should be reporting to the board of directors and to the membership briefly once in a while, hopefully at local meetings. The political committee absolutely greases the skids in terms of our advocacy efforts. As Herb Morgan and Tim Meenan have both said over the years, you can't buy a vote anymore. It doesn't work that way. But what the PAC funds do is open doors. It gets us into the door of these legislators who possibly may not otherwise visit with us. You never know. But the truth of the matter is that it's so important. It's important to us in our advocacy efforts. So Taylor is going to do a fabulous job as our chair next year of our PC, she and her board. But we need that structure and we need that organization at the local level as well. And that's the purpose of these teleconferences here in the month of September, moving into 2020, is to help you get organized, know that we are here as resources, whether it's Taylor, whether it's myself or the rest of the NAFA Florida staff here, Ashley and Diana. We're here to assist you in any way we possibly can. Diana is amazing with the databases. She can pull you just about anything you need to have and knows how to get it much better than I do. So she's the go-to for anything you need in the way of database information. So please, as we move into 2020, make sure your local committees are formed, active, viable, and raising lots of money for Taylor and the state team as well. So thank you, Taylor, for what you're doing.
Thank you. And I'm happy to come to your chapters or the affiliate organizations and chat and just tell a story and help in any way that I can. So that's why I always put my cell phone number on NAFA. So
there are a couple of things that I'd like to interject. I mean, I think that you're absolutely right. We need to garner participation from the locals and the affiliates, but this is a statewide committee, as we have several statewide committees in NAFA Florida, and we are absolutely encouraging people who have an interest, in this case, in advocacy and raising money for our NAFA Florida political committee to get involved. You know, it's really not as hard, and I can hear the tone in Taylor's voice, and I think Taylor's goal is, yes, to raise money for the PAC, but make it in a fun way. And I think that is a phenomenal narrative to have, because if we can achieve our goal but have a good time doing it, it doesn't get a whole lot better than that. So I would definitely encourage that. And I think that Taylor's offer to visit different locals and areas in Florida is very gracious, and she may even be able to do that more frequently if we're using technology like the Zoom platform like we're doing right now, so that if you're a local or your area, your local meeting, your affiliate meeting wants to have a 10-minute segue on advocacy, I'm sure that might be able to be arranged with Taylor if it's done ahead of time, where she could come in on the Zoom platform and do that for a few minutes. Does that sound like a good idea? Or?
Absolutely, happy to. And anyway, I was hoping that the local could maybe pay for a Ritz night, whatever, but Zoom is fine too. I'm kidding.
Before we adjourn here, I just would like to reiterate a couple of things. Number one, Taylor, thank you for really pushing the Legislative Day on the Hill in your presentation. And we're family here, so we're going to talk for a moment about Day on the Hill and participation at Day on the Hill. In 2018, earlier this year, 2019, we had rather thin participation out of the membership in getting to Tallahassee for Day on the Hill. Not a lot, but it was enough that we had several gaps in terms of legislators, be they House members or members of the Senate, who were not visited by NAFA Florida members, hopefully their constituents, during our Day on the Hill visits. And that's typically not been the case for NAFA Florida. We've usually had enough to cover all, if not most, of the appointments with legislators. So we really need to put a lot of emphasis here coming up in 2020. She gave you the date. It's January 28th, 2020. It's a Tuesday right here in Tallahassee for Day on the Hill. And we had this discussion yesterday during the political involvement teleconference. And I emphasized the same point on the PIC end and now with the political committee. Please make sure you get to Day on the Hill, set up your appointments with your legislative delegation, and encourage members of your association to get here as well. We need you in Tallahassee. And this goes to a discussion that Tim and I had following the 2019 Day on the Hill. Tim was very concerned. I am very concerned that we're not getting enough people here to Day on the Hill to make sure we cover our bases here. So I'm going to make that plea to you to please make sure that we get them set up.
Tim can't, I mean, the story is Tim can't do what he does as well as he does it without butts in the seats. I mean, to be frank,
Right.
if we have a great contingent of people that are wanting to talk to our elected officials, that he can't do it unless we're there. So we need to get there, which is why I'd love to make it as easy as possible. Literally, I'll take the car seat out of my car and I'll load it up if you need a ride.
Right, and that's one aspect of Tim's representation of us before the legislature is that they see him every single day just about. You know, he's in and out of their offices. He's on a first name basis with most of the legislators, if not all of them. But he needs those legislators to know that there are actual faces back in the districts, that's us, who he's representing. And that's the reason the Day on the Hill program is so valuable to Tim as our lobbyist. It's more about backing up Tim, if you will, and his work that he does every day, those 60 days during the legislative session. Early registration ends late December. I think it's the 27th. The hotel room block reservation ends on the 27th. Please make sure you get your hotel rooms reserved. It's Tallahassee, it's legislative session, and the rooms fill up. So once we lose our block after December 27th, we're not going to get those rooms back, especially at the rate that we've got them for you. So please make sure you do that. Just a couple of other things before we wrap up. Reminder that the NAFA advocacy meeting in Washington will be December 2 through 4. That's really a meeting designed for our PIC chairs, state and local PIC chairs, state and local PAC or PC chairs as well, and our state leadership. I know Joe will be in attendance, Craig Duncan will be there. Taylor, I know you have to be out of the country, but Sue Nading is going to attend. And so we're going to have plenty of representation there. But that meeting is open to anyone who would like to attend. And we encourage you to do so. Just a reminder that Monday, December 2nd is Thanksgiving Monday. And the airlines consider that to be part of travel for our Thanksgiving weekend. So please make your hotel.
You need an excuse to get away from the in-laws during the holiday season. This is a great one.
You're going to England, aren't you?
I have to go see my in-laws. I'd rather be with y'all.
But at any rate, it kicks off with a short meeting in the afternoon, about 3 o'clock on that Monday. The next day, there's breakout sessions for PIC and PAC and some great main platform speakers. We typically get, last year it was Senator Chuck Grassley from Iowa, who was the main speaker. So they get some names in there to talk to us. And then on Wednesday is the appointments with members of Congress, both the House and the Senate. A fascinating day. If you've never been to the Congressional Conference or the Day on the Hill, the advocacy meeting, that's a great thing to attend. You can fly home that Wednesday night or stay over and fly out Thursday morning. We've already talked about it. Day on the Hill is September 28th. Please make sure you get there and get others there as well. And then finally, the NAFA Congressional Conference will be held May 19 and 20, again in Washington. Think of that one as the NAFA Day on the Hill, if you will. And it's 2 days of, the first day is meetings and orientation and some very interesting speakers. And then followed by on Wednesday, the next day, appointments with members of Congress again. A fascinating time. If you think Tallahassee is fun with Day on the Hill, try it at the national level with our congressional conference. There's a person who's on our telecast this morning who I'd like to recognize. Brian Holtz is the new Southeastern Political Committee Chair for NAFA. So Brian, welcome to the call, and we want to make sure you were appropriately introduced. And I know Taylor and the rest of the team here looks forward to working with you as our liaison to NAFA throughout 2020. So thank you for being on the call. So Joe, I'm going to turn it back to you for some final thoughts, and then we'll close it out.
Well, thank you, Tom. Taylor, I thank you for doing a great job in having a conversation about the importance of advocacy and pointing out some really good ideas about changing the narrative and making it more fun. I'd love to bring back a silent auction, maybe even bring in a massage therapist for those who contribute to NAFA, because advocacy can decrease your stress.
I like it.
Yeah, and I think that we need to just have some more ideas flowing in so we can vet them and actually bring them to fruition. Maybe we'll have another, rolling caravan of one type or another, including pick and pack and so forth. And a lot of possibilities, but it all comes down to the individual helping out, because together everyone achieves more. So thanks very much for participating. And Tom, if you have any final words.
You're
muted.
Sorry, no, I'm good. Thank you very much, all. We appreciate you, and especially to you, Taylor. Good job. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all for spending the time with me this morning.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Tom, you want to hang on for a minute?